All right. So if you're just joining me, let's see. I think good evening, everybody. Good day, everybody. If I mean good evening, how are you? I trust you're doing fine. Um, okay. Justice from what school V4, right? Is that correct? That's yeah, from karate. That's interesting. Nice to meet you here. Um, welcome to welcome to my personal space, right? And I talk about JavaScript here and all of that. So it's good to have you here. And I hope you're going to also like learn one or two things here as well. Today, I just want to talk about JavaScript. And so I do this on Fridays and Saturdays, right? On Fridays, I do JavaScript. Then on Saturdays, I try to talk about React, and I talk about just full stack um, capacity. Like just talk about Next.js. Sometimes we talk about database. We talk about sending emails. We just talk about like all the all the sweet all the sweet stuff that JavaScript has to offer. So yeah, today I'll be focusing on JavaScript. That's the goal. And I want to quickly just talk about object property configuration in JavaScript. So object have some deeper configurations inside of them. That is, you can write to objects, right? We can read their value, and some of their values are also enumerable as well. So we want to talk about we'll talk about define property. I think there's also defined properties as well. There is object.define property and there is object.define properties. And then we also have get property descriptor, right? There is object.get property descriptor. So I'm just going to get deep into those things, right? Those are the things I really want to talk about today. And they are categorized under something we refer to as property flags and descriptors under object. That is where you have the three major flags where they're either writable, readable, or enumerable. And then we also have object getters and setters. I don't know why getters and setters are not common again, right? In this modern writing code era that we are in. But before they used to be the major way to write JavaScript. But I guess JavaScript has also evolved a lot, right there. So if you're here on the stream, thank you for joining. I do appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining, and I do appreciate. Now, straight to business as well. I'm just going to talk about some of the exciting things I'm currently doing personally. I'm trying to increase the followership of my YouTube channel as well, so you can give me a follow, right? And I'm also trying to. I think my Twitter follower is 3,970 something, so you can also give me a follow there as well, so that I can enter the 4K zone as well. And my YouTube follower is around 260 something thereabout, 260 something thereabout. So I'm hoping to get a push to 500 as much as possible as well. So also, for those who don't know, right, I do write as well. I do some form of writing as well on my personal blog. um I'm also going to share my screen, right, so that you see um all of this, right? You could just help me, just give a shout out to me, help me tell people that tells another person and all of that, and everything is going to go as it should. So yeah, for those who are just joining here, this is my personal very ugly website. Yeah, it it has like all the stuff I do in here. This is the link that takes you to my YouTube space, right? And for writing, I talk about all the things I write about here. So I'm also created a way where all my videos are like a blog post entry as well. So the last one was introduction to data structures, how to implement linked list in JavaScript. So these are things that you can just watch on your own just to learn more about JavaScript and all of that I do. So I also talked about, this is the last thing I did on Next.js, right? I think Nifemi was on the stream, right, where we were trying to complete the registration and sign up flow of a Next.js app that we're working on. So we're using Next.js, we're using Tailwind. These are all the things that I'm using here. You can see that we're using Next.js, React.js, we're using Auth.js for login, we're using Tailwind CSS, right? We're using Postgres for the database. Then we're also using Resend to send the email as well. So you can always watch all of these, give me comments and all of that as well. You can comment as well. There's room to drop comments as well. Um, what other thing do I want to? So for all the links to my social for all the link to my social space here, you can follow me on Twitter, GitHub, and all these other interesting places. But YouTube is the one that is very much important so that you can get notified anytime I get to start streaming. And there's another interesting thing I like to show you guys as well. So I think I made my repository, this repository here, I made it very powerful. So you can see that here on the first repository that I have here, it is fetching the 5 last blog posts that I have on my personal website. This is very powerful. This is very cool as well, right? Being able to implement something as beautiful as this as well. So so anytime I upload like a new like I write a new blog post, it will run this again and fetch almost the latest stuff that I have. So this is quite powerful. I'm using GitHub Actions and I'm using Born as well to be able to do all of that. So there's a lot and exciting stuff to learn, right? If you're here, there'll be always a lot of stuff to learn. I think for justice, right? You probably want to read this because I've talked about this with you guys. I've talked about the power of CLI with you guys. And I think I talked about GH more in the last class. Is that right, Justice? So I talked about GH, using GH, right? GH is very powerful. And it helps us to just create a repository, helps us to create a lot of things. Then Netlify also has a CLI that you can use. Then for Cloudinary, there's also a CLI that you can also use, right? Once you install that on your computer. And there are NPM packages, right, that we can also use to make a lot of things work. So here I talked about all the magic that I use. Here you can see that here I'm giving all the secrets to all the magic that I do, right? Just to be able to move very fast when I write code. And these are functions. These are the ways I've been able to customize all of the amazing tools that I use regularly. So you can do well to just read. I used to be a good writer, but I don't think I write so good anymore. I'm just trying to get back into my writing zone. I used to love to write and to get to understand all of the things that are happening. And so if you want to see the code for this particular cool feature that fetches the 5 recent blog posts, you can come in here, right? And then you can see all the code is inside this .ts file. This is TypeScript. And yeah, I mean, it's just JavaScript, but definitely with types as well. So again, there's a lot of exciting thing about what I'm trying to do, right? And I said it earlier that on Twitter I have 3974. I think I need 26 more followers to enter into 4K. So you can definitely give me a follow as well in that space. So that being said, and I think I can jump into my JavaScript. So for all the JavaScript sweetness that I talk about, I usually use JavaScript.info. Right by now, everybody should know that I'm a fan of JavaScript.info. This is one of the best place to learn JavaScript. So there is properties of properties, flags, and descriptors. Right. Apologies for that noise there. So there is property flags and descriptors, and there is property getters and setters, right, in JavaScript. And this is the guide I usually follow for many of the teachings I do for JavaScript. Right, I've talked about it earlier in the introduction that for objects in JavaScript, we have some properties, just like in HTML. HTML elements have attributes, just the same way objects in JavaScript have properties. Some of the three major properties that they tend to exhibit is what the writable and the enumerable and the configurable. I think I said readable earlier, so actually, this is the correction. It's writable, enumerable, and configurable ability of objects in JavaScript. What do we even mean when we say object in JavaScript? I mean, for those who are just joining, who are just learning, and you want to really understand what is going on, right? So I can use a lot of tool here, but just to make things fast, there is the node environment that I can work here, right? And we can declare an object in the terminal by just doing this, right? And we have an object, and then we can then do we can then do a object dot get own property descriptor on it, right? Just to understand, okay, what is the description of the property of this object? Now, I also like MDN as well because MDN.io / JavaScript and / get object dot get property descriptors. I think this should lead us to object.get own property descriptors, right? So this should lead us to what the particular what function under object that displays to us, right, all the what the details about the configuration of the object. The explanation here says that it is a static method, right? When you hear the word static method, it means that it is connected directly to the constructor. So there is a constructor called object, there is a constructor called number, and there are constructor called strings. And these are constructors, high level. So it means that what I'm saying here is that you can create object by saying new object. This, right? This is a constructor that helps us to create a new object. So yeah, that's what we're saying here. So based on the fact that we have this object declared already, then we can then call object dot what. So a static method is a method that is attached directly to the object. So you can then do object dot what get, right? That is get own property descriptor. Get own property descriptor, right? You see, it's a function, and we can pass it what are the things that we can pass this in here, right? The signature is what it can accept a particular object, and you can also give it a prop, right? That is the object in which you're trying to look for the property, the name or the symbol of the property whose description is to be what revealed. So in this situation here, we don't have anything inside the object. So we can just say, let me try something with an empty object. I think it should just not give us anything. It should not give us anything. Yes, because there is nothing inside of the object. So we can then say obj dot name, right, equals to justice. We have justice here. No, it's justice. Justice. The capital J. Justice. And we have this. So if we then ask again and say, oh, give me the description, right? Give us the description of the stuff in here. And what is the prop that we're looking for? We're looking for name inside of that thing. And it's able to tell us, right, the full detail about this object. So it told us that the value of name is justice. It is what? Writable, right? And it is what? It is enumerable, and it is what? Configurable. I mean, by their name alone, they are self-explanatory. It means you can write into it, it means you can change it, it means you can add more, it means you can like list it out. That is enumerable. It means you can run a for off, right? That's what this means. It means you can run a for in, a for in, let each in what? Obj, right? And then we can do a console.log, right? Each. So this is going to be displaying each of the what? Of the property or the value inside of this obj object. So it's listing that. So if we say obj.age is equals to 99, right? If we list again, you can see the two things there. You have a name, the age being listed for us. But the beautiful thing again is that we can know more about what? About the what? The property, right? And you can know the configure, like the you know more about the property by understanding what the flags are, right? What the descriptor inside of the object are entirely. So again, based on what we have seen here, there is the what the writable ability, there is the readable ability, and there is the enumerable ability, and there is the configurable ability of objects. So what we can do is, how do we go ahead to create a object that does not have, maybe where we can configure all of these things? And that is where another interesting method comes to play. So there is object dot define property, right? So there is two, whether it is, there is one first called property and there is properties. Now, are you guys with me? Do you have any questions so far? Right? Do we have any questions so far? Right. I hope you're learning. Right. So with the defined property, right, there is a defined property that we have, which tells us that, okay, you can do some interesting things with what? A property. That is, we can now declare a new object. That is, we can say the name of the object is going to be a user, and we can say, well, it is going to have a property inside, and the property is going to be what? Name, right? And we can now specify the descriptions, right? Specify the flags that that thing will be able to what to do, right? I think we can specify, yeah, we can specify value here. You can specify value of that. What's the value of name? We can say the value of name is Nifemi, right? And we can say maybe it is going to be writable, right? Writable to be what? False, right? And then everything else should be what? Let's see here. Let's see. Let's see here. So I'm going to break it down a little bit more for you to be able to understand. Okay, let's just do this because I've not declared the object before now. So I have to declare. So for you, Justice, right? When you hear the word object in JavaScript, right, it is something like this. Let name, let's say let user equals to this curly bracket. So this is how to declare object in JavaScript. Does that make sense to you? So this is how we declare objects in what? JavaScript. Now we can now say that user dot what? We have a property called name, and you can say the name is what? Obinna, right? Obinna, right? And now if we ask for the user, you can see that now there is name colon Obinna inside of the object. Oh, we can say, well, we want more inside of the object. So we can say that we want to have user.name, right? User.age, right? And we can say Obinna is a old man, and we can say Obinna has this here. And you can see now that what we have user containing name, to be Obina and what age to be what 99. So what is obvious here to you? This is how we define object. So we can define object to take multiple things, right? Object can have name colon Obina, it can have age colon this, it can have job, it can have different things, right? But the idea is that inside of the object there will be a property and what value. That is, you will now have what a property and value. So the property here is name, and the value now is what will be now. So sometimes you can hear people call it property, or they also call it key. So a object in JavaScript will now have what a key colon value, a key colon value, a key colon value, right? And when we get to CSS already, because we're already in CSS, in CSS we'll be declaring a selector, to have something that looks like this. And we can see a selector is going to have a color of what? Of red, right? So you can see that the rule set, the rule declaration inside of our CSS actually maintains the shape of an object in JavaScript. Does that make sense? I mean, Nifemi, this should be correct, right? That is the rule portion of our the rule portion of our CSS actually maintains the shape of of an object, outside the fact that you have to put a semicolon here, right? Is it semicolon here? You have to put a semicolon there. You can say border is border is 2 pixel solid, right? And all of that there. So this is just a little CSS right there. Now we've declared a particular object to the user. Then it means the reason why it is called key basically is just that is the way to identify something. It means that if you want to identify and get what the value of Obina, this particular user, you want to get the name of this user. So you want to access it by saying user.name, right? And it will tell you what the name is. So you're using a user dot something. And also we can also say a user, right? Square bracket of what? Of name also. So you can access the properties, right? You can access the key, right, inside of the object, either using the dot notation or the square bracket notation. So we believe that the reason why that particular property or that thing is called key is because it is the way to access it, right? Like if you want to open the door, you need a key to open the door. So if you want to know what the detail of the name of this particular object is, then you need to know what the key is, and that key will enable us to know what is going on inside of the object. Does that make sense? So that is that. And I mean, we can also delete. It has a special behavior where I can delete the key inside of an object. I can delete a user.name, right? And if I say what is the value of user now, you will see that my user doesn't have name anymore, right? And that is the basic operations that we can do with user, right? And we are also now able to now go deeper by saying there is a object dot what. I said this capital object is a constructor. Now, for those who are here for the very first time and you're hearing the word constructor for the very first time, I mean, don't bother to be scared. When we say the word constructor, right, we're just saying that this is what helps us to construct something. This is what helps us to construct something. So in this situation, if I want to construct a new object, then I can do a capital word. I can write the new keyword and I say, oh, I'm trying to declare a object. And I can say that, I mean, even without this, I should be able to get a new object. And this is what a constructor. Beautiful. You can construct a number, right, by using constructor, right? Oh, I can construct the value and I can say this is 2. Right. And this is what a constructing, right? This is the constructing. Right. So again, most of the things I'm doing here is because I'm just trying to teach people, right, to learn as many stuff around JavaScript as much as possible. Again, you can construct a string using the new keyword, right? Right. That is a way to construct. So you can construct by saying Ojo, right, is what a new string in JavaScript. That is constructing. Does that make sense? So And we can also create our own constructor, right? You can create our own constructor. So we can construct, we can construct a person, right? A person, and we can use a function and capital person to construct something and say this thing will always have a name, right? And this will be what this dot name equals to what name, and we do this here. So it means that if I want to create a new value of person, I can then say what, oh, there's a person that is what teaching today, and the name of the person is what Ojo, right here. And I've been able to create my own type of what constructor that construct persons, just like what classes do for us in JavaScript. So we can use class to say what to construct a new person class, right? Trust me, I'm just trying to not, I'm just writing everything on a line just so you can we can move fast. We can just say name equals to, let's just say name is equals to, if I want to write a constructor, yeah, let's just write a constructor. Constructor is the first function that is fired inside of a class. So we can say then this dot name equals to name. I think I don't need to even use this after, and it should just work. I think it should be lower case class. Lower case class. So we have a beautiful person class here. I mean, you might be wondering why I'm just writing everything on the line here. I'm going to go inside VS Code to also write all those things, but I feel like writing it inside Node, right? REPL, right? Node REPL, Node. This is called a Node REPL, right? Read, eval, print, loop, kind of stuff, right? So I can, you can see that I have a new class now called person class, and I can say with person class, use the new keyword to create a person called what's the name of this person that we want to create now? We can say the name of the person is Lifemi, and we have this here. I think I made a mistake somewhere when I was declaring the class. Yeah, I made a mistake somewhere here. The class is supposed to have this here, accept the name here to make this work. The class is supposed to accept the name. Let's just write this inside a full-blown JavaScript. Let's just bring in, let me write this in an editor so that I can see what is going on first. Let's write this inside the JavaScript. No. This is not the repository I want to open. Let's just open, let me go into my live streaming JavaScript and live streaming directory. And yeah, I can open my IDE. And I can create a new thing called object configuration, right, .js. So here we can now say that what? We can now say that our class, right, class person class is supposed to actually look like this, right? And I think I should be able to just say name is this, right? Or we can just call it constructor. We don't need the same name. We just need this constructor here. Yeah. So that is that with this here, and then we can see that. How do we call this new person? We can create a new person this way. So and how do I run this code? So we can run this code with what ES_no. We can do an hyphen watch, and we can say watch the object underscore configuration file for us. So yeah. So if I console.log person now, right? We use console dot log to show, right, the result of what we're trying to do. Right. Yeah. And if I console.log this, right, and it's trying to run, and you can see that what it has created, what a copy of person for me. It has created a copy of person for me. However, I don't know why this did not work inside my node. I think it's supposed to work. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. What is missing here? Constructor. Okay, I can see what is missing here. Constructor must take name here, right? And then you can point it towards name. So this helps us to create what? So we can construct name now, right? With the help of JavaScript. So that is just us constructing things, right? Using JavaScript, right? To create what? So to play with constructors. So when we now say something is a static method, right? What does a static method means? A static method now says that, well, that thing, it's a particular, so let's before we go to what static method is, we can quickly briefly talk about what methods are generally in JavaScript. So here, for this class to have a method, we can say that there is a method called say name, right? And yeah, this is going to what? Console.log the name of that particular user. So this is the method. The thing here is what? A method. But let's assume that we are dealing with plain object here as well. So if we're dealing with plain object here, like we have done earlier, we have user equals to this object. So you can declare a name to be what? Obina, right? Obina, right? And we can also declare a what? We can declare a method called what? This, right? And this kind of what console.log is the name. So again, this is what a object that was given two what? It was given three properties. But how do we explain these properties? We say that what the first two property, right? They are what? They are just properties, while the last one it's a method. So what do we mean by a method? A method is a function that is inside of an object. A method is a function that is what inside of what of an object, right? A method is a function that is inside of what of an object. Again, a method is any function that we have written inside of an object. So is this a function? Okay, this is not a function. So let's say this is not a function. So instead of us just saying, well, just write function, something like this, right? So what it allows us to do is it permits us to not put this function name here, right? It just permits us to write the name of the thing here and put the parameter. So let's say we want to maybe take another parameter. So we can say age, or we can say job, right? And what this does is like this is going to display is going to display all of the details of this person. So it's going to display the name of this person here, right? And it's going to say that Justice is a what? Justice is a developer, right? And is what? 10 years old. And how many years old? And we can say is what? Age years old, right? We can do that with the help of what? JavaScript. So how do we use this here now? So I can now call this and say a user dot what? You remember when I said the dot? What does the dot help us to do? The dot help us to what? To what? To access what? All of the properties, right? For example, we said what? You can ask for the age of that what? Of that user, or you can ask for what? The name of that user. But the interesting thing is you can now call the what? The say name function as well. And it's asking for, oh, what is the job? So we can say that this person here is what? A developer. A developer. Right here, we are able to see that this person here is a developer. So, and we can then console.log this as well. Just wrap all of this in a console.log. right there. And then we can run this with our node, right? We can run this with our node. And then we will see what is the problem. Age is not defined. On which line is age not defined? Okay. This is supposed to be what? This dot what? This dot age. So when we say this dot age, we're saying that what is the age of this particular object. So the this is pointing to give me this age, right? Or give me this particular or particular stuff here. And then you would see that what it's telling us that Obina is a developer and what 30 years old. Obina is a developer and 30 years old. So we can put hand somewhere here as well. You can put hand somewhere here. Let's just make it a little bit makes more sense so that we can everything can look a lot more good, well displayed. So instead of using plus plus to concatenate, right, we can use a template literal, right? And a template literal is what we call the backtick, right, in JavaScript. Backtick. So the backtick helps us to what? To do interpolation of variables. It helps us with interpolation of variables. Again, what is interpolation of variables? That is when you display a string, right? You are able to, when you display a certain string, right? You're able to talk to a variable within that string, so long as this is a backtick, right? This backtick sign is at the top of your tab, is always at the top of your tab key, right? And it usually be beside tilde. So this is a template literal, right? A multi-line. It allows us to do interpolation. It allows us to do multi-line. Those are the strengths of this here. So you can see now that it is well formatted, and it is telling us that Obina is. Can say Obina is a job. What do you mean by Obina? Obina's job. Obina is a developer. So we need this to be what? This dot job. And he is XYZ old, right? He's XYZ old, right? Okay. So because we did not, so you can see, yeah, I'm trying to do a this dot job, right? And it's not working because we are only taking whatever thing that we pass here, right? We're not accessing the this from this user here. So we can delete this. It should be just ordinary job, and it will use this particular job, right? And we should see the correct thing displayed. That is, Obina is a developer and he is what 30 years old. So that is just to explain what method means. So this is just method. Now, what does a static method means? A static method is a method that is attached to the constructor directly. So how do we create a static method? We just say that what this is a static, and we can say that what static, and we can say that this is going to be returning what maybe static name. Let's just say this is static. Static. The name of this is static. Now, so when you call something a static method, now it means that we can then just do, we can call it directly from the constructor. So you can say person class dot say name. So this is an example of a static method. So for those who are just hearing this word for the very first time, this is a static method. That is a particular method that is attached directly to the constructor, right there. And how do we do this with functions as well? Right, we can also do this with functions, but don't let me go too much into it so that I don't talk too much as well, right? So now what we're trying to talk about is that with objects, right, with our object, again, let's declare another object. So we can first declare the object and say we can say person is equals to what? This is an object. Then we can now add properties, right? And we can say person dot name is John, right? And person dot age is this, right? This is us adding values into this. Now, how do we understand the configuration of the property name and the property age? So to understand the configuration details, then we can do a what? A static method. That is object, capital object, dot what? Get what? Property what? Get property, get own property descriptor, own property descriptor, right? And this takes the object to be first. What's the value of the object in this place? The value of the object is person, and then the next thing is what? The property, right? The property that we are dealing with here is what? The name, right? And we can see that what this is going to give us what? The descriptors, descriptor, right, of what? Of person, the descriptor of person, right? And we can log this, right? We can say this here, and we can go inside and see what is going on right here. So it is telling us that what the value is journed, it is writable, it is enumerable, and it is configurable. Okay, so let's say we want to create another value and we don't want it to have maybe writable to be true. We want everything to be set to be false. So what we can do is that what we can now do a object dot define property. Again, that is object dot define property takes a what? A object. What is the object in this case? A person. And what is the property in this case? We want to create a fresh property called job. And we want to say that, I think this job should be quoted. And then we want to say that what we want to tell you is what? We want to give you a value, right? And what is this value? This value is going to be what? This person is a developer, right? And now we can also get the second descriptor, right? Again, and now which descriptor are we getting? We are getting the descriptor for what? Job, right? And tell us what? Person descriptor of person's job, right? And then we can log this down now here, right? We can then console.log this out here. And you would see the interesting thing that is happening, right? That what? Now there is a twist. The value is what? Developer, but the value, the writable is false, the enumerable is false, and the configurable is false, right? That is the what? The beauty of what? So which, again, what is the method that we just used now? We use what? Get own property, get own property, right? Sorry, define property. That is the method that we just use. So what is the work of this method here? It's a static method that defines a new property directly on object or modifies an existing property. So what we are able to do is that we accept three things. It accepts the object, the prop, and the possible descriptor. The descriptor should always be a object, right, that contains value, right, that contains a object of what? Value, of writable, of enumerable, and of what? Configurable. So what do I mean by what I just said now? I said that what here, anytime you call a defined property, you pass it a what? A object. You pass it a property. Then this next thing that you pass it here must can take what? Value, right, comma, and it can take what? Writable, writeable, right, and you can say writable is what? Is true, and we can leave it at that place. But by default, writable, enumerable, and configurable are false by default. So you need to specify true if you want to be able to what? To write it. So for the first time now, let's make this false, right? Let's just leave this false here. Let's leave writable to be false, and let's make enumerable false, right? Let's make enumerable false. And we also want to make configurable, right? Configurable false as well. And you will see what this thing means and what is the implication of this thing that we just did here. So let's go back and see the result of this operation. So we have, what do we have? We're supposed to have, okay, right. Let's say we want writable to be what? To be true. We want writable to be true. So since enumerable and configurable are false by default, right, we might not need them, right? Let's just save this and go back to our terminal. Okay, so what does writable means? So writable says that, well, we can write into that object. So we can now say that what? Oh, person dot job. The person has changed job. They are now a designer, right? And then we can console.log what? Person, right? We can console.log person here. And you're going to see the absolute what? Behavior of this. What? What is happening? What is happening? Okay, it's user that we touched. Let's see. Let's do this here. This is person, person dot job, right? Right. So it is now saying, number one, it is not even displaying. Can you see that it's not displaying job? Do you notice that it is not displaying job? It is not displaying the job. Why is it not displaying the job? Even though we can write into job, we can change job, we can change the value that job is assigned. Let's go deeper. Let's see whether this is going to give us the value of job. Yes, it is giving us, but at a high level here, right here, it is not what? It is not displaying all the list of what? Job. So you can see that when they say it is not going to be enumerable, right? When we ask for the list of the things inside the object, it is not listing it for us. Even though it permitted us to write into it to change the value of that particular field called job. But when it's the time for us to display it, it is not listing it as part of a property. And that is because of the configuration that we have right in place. That is, we have configured this object in a way where it is not going to be listing all of the what the properties inside of it. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Nifemi. Does that make sense? Right? Does that make sense to you? So we have what? It is not displaying because we have what? We have told the object, right, that what, hey, you are not going to be enumerable. That is, you're not going to be able to list all you're going to be able to list all the other things, but this job that we have configured, right? This job that we have changed the descriptor, you will not be able to list job. And that's what we have done. Does that make sense to you, Nifemi? So that is what the enumerability, right? Here. And I think that the configurability is going to be pointing to whether we can what configure that particular what object. All right. So there is now another advanced what's it called now? I think, let me just confirm what configurable means. So when you say configurable to be false, what we're saying is that what you cannot what a configurable property of the object cannot be what deleted, and its attributes cannot be what modified. That's interesting. It cannot be deleted, and what the attributes cannot be modified. So here, the attributes cannot be modified. Are you now saying that we cannot modify the behavior of that object again? This is very, very powerful. It is very, very powerful. This is very powerful here. Very, very powerful. So it says that what we cannot delete. So the first thing is what we cannot even delete. You cannot write the delete command to delete job here. So we have made it untouchable, right? We've made it untouchable. So even after we run the command to delete, you can see that what anytime we ask it to log it, it's still displaying designer back to us because we have configured the behavior not to be what deletable, right there. And another very powerful example, let's go to Node.js to try this example, is that there is the math, or there is the math object, and there is the math dot what the math dot py. So let's look at math. Let's do a object dot what get property get prop own property descriptor, right? And we want to say what the object that we're dealing with is math, the property is pi, right? Yeah, we want to do this. Pi is supposed to be a string, right? Pi is supposed to be a string. Look at this now. It's telling us something interesting about the pi here. So it's telling us that, well, there is the value of pi in the math class, but it has this behavior. You cannot write, you cannot enumerate it, and you cannot what? Configure it. And this is almost the behavior for every constant that we have inside the math class. I think there is the math.e as well. So we can see the math.e as well, and then we can see all this beautiful behavior, right? That what this is the value of what math class. So that is why most of the time when you do a math class and you want to log it, right, math class doesn't tell us everything inside of it, right? Because they have sealed that object in a way where it will not tell you, right, what is going on inside of that thing. It's not going to tell us. It's not going to leak out the things that is happening inside of that math object, right? So back to us. So that is the major thing. Again, we have checked two major functions or methods that are important, right? What are the two major methods that we have checked they're very, very important here? There is the what? The object, the static method object dot what? Object dot what? Dot define property. What is the work of define property? We use the define property to create what? To configure the property, right, of a particular object. And then we now have what? The object dot what? Get own property descriptor. That is the way we can know what the behavior, right, the descriptor of a particular property inside of an object is. However, now we have another set of what ones, right? That is, we have the what? Get what? Property descriptors of what? Of the math class. And I want you to tell me about what? I want you to tell me about what? Two things. Tell me about what? Yeah, let's do this first. Let's see if this is going to return something. What? This. So it's returning all the details, right? And it's now telling us that, well, we have the absolute, we have the a cos, we have the a cosh, we have the a sign, right? You can see the ones that are writable, right? You can see the ones that are writable, right? There, right? And eventually when we get to what, you can see this one here, the exponent is what? Writable and configurable. We can see floor has writable and configurable, right? Then we have what? F round has what? Writable and configurable. And yeah, Bosse, how are you? Good to have you on the stream. This is one of the OGs that has been here supporting me right here. Then we have, I mean, you can go down to the constants here, right? It just sort of just displays all of these things to us and tells us all the details right there. So you can see that the plural version is more powerful. Get home property descriptors. The math class that was not telling us anything, remember before we were trying to console.log math, it was not telling us anything. Come on, we are smart and we can now tell it to display everything inside of it to us. And this is the most important one. It also has this symbol dot what? To string tag right here. So there's a lot of what? Very interesting stuff, right, that is going on, right, with the get home property descriptors, right? That is, it can now tell us all of the descriptors about what? A particular object. right there. And the other one that we want to talk about before we move on to something else today is what we have, the defined properties with S. So again, this is the plural version. It allows us to describe, to define what more than just one property. So we can specify property one and tell it the value, and you can say another property two is what also has this behavior as well. So the what the object, it's also a static method, that is object dot define properties is what helps us to modify, right, to define new or modify existing properties directly on an object by returning the value of the object. So again, you can see that what the define properties and the what the get own property descriptors with S, they are actually very, very, very powerful. And then the last thing that we want to talk about is what? This is Colade is not on the stream today, but Colade loves this so much. Colade is one of the persons that really opened my eyes to object.freeze, right? So let's know what freeze is doing. Can we get object, right, dot get own property descriptor, right, for object in itself? Let's see whether this is going to leak out some things to us here. Okay, it's not leaking out anything because we didn't specify the S. Okay, it's now leaking out everything that is happening there. So it's telling us that, well, inside object, I have length, okay, right? And my value is always one, right? And I'm writable, I'm not writable, I'm not enumerable, and I'm just configurable. Oh, it's telling us that there is a name, property inside object, there is a prototype inside object, there is a assign inside object, which is a function, there is a get own property descriptor inside object, there is the get own property names, there is the get own property symbols, there is the has own, there is the object.is for equality, the has own we use to check whether it has a particular property, there is the prevent extension, there is the object.seal, right? We also have the object.create, we have the object.define properties, we have the object.define property, and we have the word dot freeze, object.freeze. Then we have get prototype. So you can understand the prototype of a particular object as well, or you can set the prototype of a particular object. Oh, beautiful. There is also a method to check whether a object is extensible, which is what object.is extensible, right? Can we extend this object? Oh, is this object frozen? Is this object sealed? We can get the dot keys, we can get the dot entries, we can get the dot from entries, we can get the dot values on an object. So you can see again that we are in an absolutely powerful object. Like objects are so powerful, right? That if we are able to manipulate them properly, right, we're able to like do a lot of amazing stuff with objects. So I just want to focus on seal and freeze. So what does seal does? Seal forbids adding, removing of properties. That is what the freeze, the seal does is that it stops us from being able to add something to a particular object, right? That is, it sets the configurable ability to be what? To be false. So let's try this out. Do we still have person here? No, we don't have person. So let's define a object to be person. Before we start, let's just clear the screen a little bit. Let's clear the screen a little bit. So we have, let's see. Sorry, what's going on here? What is going on here? So we have node. Let's just clear this before we open node. Then we can see node. And we are now able to say that let person, and we can say person is equals to what? name is Bosse, right? Bosse. And we can close this here. So we can now save the what object dot seal, and I want to seal what? I want to seal this person. So now we've sealed this person, right? This is sealed. Sealed. No, let's see. I think, let me try something before I try something else. So person, right, dot name equals to, let's see, Ojo. So let's see what person does. Okay, so it's a sealed, but it has sealed. So for the way the seal works would have been what? Person equals to this. So now we should not be able to change this name anymore, I think. Are we able to still change the name? So it forbids adding or removing. Okay, that's what seal does. We will still be able to change the name, but what we will not be able to do is we cannot add. So I can't say person dot job is a developer, and let's see what person does, except if it's still. So you can see that what that person is sealed and it's not allowing me to add another thing here. It is sealed. It's not permitting us to do anything, and that is the behavior of the object dot seal, right? And let us also check deeper by looking at the object dot what? Object dot get own property descriptors, right? About what? Person, right? And this is going to tell us about person. So it's going to tell us that, well, there is name inside of person, and the value is Ojo1. It is writable. That's why we can change the writing. It is enumerable, right? We can list it, but it is not configurable. That is, you cannot add or remove it. So we cannot delete person dot what? Person dot name, right? You can see that it's outrightly returned false here, which stops us from doing the deleting that happens. Another thing that happens here is what? I want to talk about object dot freeze, right? Let's do nifemi, right? And we can say nifemi is an object, and nifemi's name is what? Nifemi, right? And we want to say there is a function that says greet, and inside of this function that says greet here, we permit you to console.log what? This dot name. We permit you to console.log this dot name. And nifemi is an object, right? And instantly we can get object dot what? We can get the object dot get own property descriptors of what? Of Nifemi by default. And we can see that, okay, Nifemi has two things. It has name and a function called greet. But the truth is that everything is what? Writable, readable, and do this. All right, does that make sense? So we can now say what? Nifemi now is now equals to what? A object dot freeze. So what does freeze do right here? Now, freeze is going to forbid adding, forbid removing, and it's also going to what? Forbids changing. Forbids changing. So if we check the description of Nifemi again, we can now see that what? Configurability has turned to false, and the writability has turned to false, that we can no longer do anything with what? This again. JavaScript is also smart enough to tell us that object dot is freezed, is frozen, right? It's frozen of Nifemi. Tell me whether Nifemi is frozen. Tell me whether Nifemi is frozen, and it can tell me that, oh, Nifemi is frozen. We also have object that is sealed, right? Tell me whether person is sealed, and it will tell me whether they are sealed or not. So these are amazing, powerful behavior, right? That we can do with objects. See, JavaScript is so powerful, honestly, trust me, right? We're able to just do and create so many beautiful things here. So the flags of objects are a very powerful thing. It's not commonly spoken about, right? You rarely see people talk about this, but this is one of the power behind objects, right? This is one of the things that makes objects what they are, right? In the sense that you have the power to configure them, you have the power to alter. It's just like you are altering the behavior of what a particular object that has been created. Now, and to the final thing I want to talk about today, we have the getters and the setters. What do we mean by getters and setters? Honestly, when we say getters and setters in JavaScript, what do we mean? So we can create a new object, right? Object dot underscore getters, and what setters dot js. So what does this mean? I mean, it's just very fast that you can what you can do a person is equals to an object, then it can have a name to be John Doe, right? John Doe, right here. And we can now tell it that, well, there's going to be a get, right? There's going to be a getter, right? What will the getter do? Getter will always return the name of this particular thing here. And what will setter do? The setter here will allow us to be able to set a new value, right, as the name. And so we can now say that this dot name equals to value. So with the help of getters and setters, we are able to what? We are able to format this, right? Now we are now able to do what? Object dot what? You can console.log person dot name, and then we can also then console do what? Person dot what? Person dot and I think that this is something here. This is not going to work as I want it to work. So we can now say getter on the name property, and we can call a setter on the name property. I think this is what I want to do here. Yeah, I think this is what I want to do here. All right. So here we're able to what? To now do a person dot name, right, and ask for a particular value. Let's go to our Node.js environment where we are running things by what? We're changing the file that we are running, right, which is -watch, -watch, and it is what? Object dot this here. So here we are able to now see what the value of what is this supposed to be? Hmm, let's see. It's saying that I think it's running a endless loop. Do I say that? Do I have to say this name here? Do I have to say this name before it works? Name is not defined. I think that's why you can console.log something for me. You should be able to console.log a this.name. I'm not sure whether I can. I should be able to do a return. Yeah, I should be able to do this.name. Let's just comment this out first. I'm trying to see what is going on here. Let's do this. Am I going to run into another problem? So if I say this.name, why can't you get this.name? Why can't you get this.name? So it is endlessly running that loop thousands time. That's interesting. So it's not able to get this name. So maybe what we can do is that we can slightly modify this, right, to maybe have we can say that this is first name, first name, and we also want to have a last name, and then we can change this to a getter to display what? A full name, right? And what this full name is supposed to do is it's going to return what? It's going to return the concatenated version of what? This dot first name, right? Joined with what? This dot what? This dot. Let's just close this, right? And we can open another one here. This is the last name. And I think now we can then ask for this dot full person dot full name, right? And we can ask for person dot full name. And I think this must absolutely work. This must absolutely work. And this is what a getter or a setter should do, right? That is, it helps, it gives us a function that we can use, right, to process certain things. So when you say get something, get is it displays something back to us. But when we say set, right, what does set mean? Set means that we're trying to set a particular thing. So it means that we can maybe override the behavior of the set, right, and allow somebody to be able to specify a separate name. So we can now call a what? A person dot what full name and decide that this is this, and then we can console.log what that thing is doing. So again, we are using the setting operation, right, to set the behavior of what and set it to a new name, which is what? Jane Smith, right? Yeah, so that is what getting and setting. I mean, they can be very advanced and technical, right? We can use them to our own advantage. The getters and setters, they allow us to set a particular what? Value, to set a particular value, right? Here. So we have what else? What do we have now? I think yeah, that is it all. Yes, so set we accept a value and then it will now create an object that is going to have that particular, right? It's going to set it, right? While get will retrieve, set will create a new thing, while set will what? Will manipulate it there. Yeah, so that is, I mean, another thing that we can also do is that we can write this further by saying, instead of doing this approach here, I think we can leverage destruct object destruction, right? Is it destruction that we call it now? The construction, or what do we call this now? Right? We can do it this way, right? And this also works perfectly. This works perfectly well. That is, we are destructuring the result of this operation, and you're taking the first thing and setting it to be this dot name, and you're taking the second thing to set it to this dot last name. Destructing, right? We are destructing this here. So this one line of code saves us these three lines of code, and that is another very beautiful, right? Another very beautiful thing that we are also able to do, right, with JavaScript. Now, under the getters and setters, there are still other advanced things like we can decide to um we can decide to use um we can decide to use as we use get to create a function, as we use set to create a function, then we can use enumerable or we can use configurable to create stuff right there. So again, same as for data properties. These are very interesting things here, right? That we can do. JavaScript. So I'm just going to write a very powerful getter and setter, right? Just taking this directly from javascript.info, right? So let's do this here. Let's user equals to be what? This. Do we explicitly have to call the get and set as keyword? Yes. Anytime you're declaring an object, you need the get, right, and the set. Also, we can also do this by doing a object dot define property, right? We can do a define property, and we can do a define property, and you can pass it person, right? What is the property that we're trying to do? You can say full name, right? Full name, and we can see what are the attributes that we're trying to play with, right? We're trying to play with what a get, right? And you can write a get there, and you can also write what is set. But set takes a value, right? Takes a value, and this works here. Again, this works as well. So we're just using object.define property to make this work. Here, you're right, because this behavior of this getter and setter can be achieved in diverse ways within our JavaScript. And that is why most persons don't use the get and the set anymore, right? You rarely see code base where you see the get and the set. They are not so common again in this common dispensation. So let's just quickly run through this example, and it's just to create a very advanced one. I mean, this is a very advanced one here, and we can also set something here. Now we can get and say this dot what, this underscore name, and we are now able to what, to also do a what, you can set and write some conditional statement like if the value dot length, right, if the value dot length is less than maybe 4, that is if the value specified, you can say the name is too short, and then we can return, or else we can set that value and say this dot what underscore name equals to what value. And this is very beautiful. Where does this underscore name come in? Right? Where does that underscore name comes in? For instance, so the underscore name is a way to, instead of, before, earlier when I was trying to run and I was using name directly, I was running into problem. But by specifying this underscore name, JavaScript engine knows that you are still talking about this same property called name. And that's why whenever we call this here, we can now say user.name equals to John. And because the value is not less than 4, let's just say Joe here, this is less than 4 here, because we're trying to set, there must be a display, it must display a particular error message, and it will display name is too short, need at least 4 characters. So again, it's a way to when our properties and values in JavaScript object are not smart, but with the idea of getters and setters, we can make our properties, right, smart. You can now make it what, have validations majorly. That is what I'm introducing to you, right? This is a very subtle way to create your own validation for a particular object that you are creating because of the getting and the setting behavior of object. So that is one thing that I think I wanted to communicate as well to you guys here. So, and I think that should be everything I wanted to talk about today. Again, having smart getters and setters makes it easy for us to, so somebody can just give us their birthday, right, and we're able to know what their age is going to be from their birthday, right? So that are the examples of the smart things that we can do, right, with this. That is, let's say we have a object here, right, like we have this user here. We can now say maybe the person should specify the birthday, right? Or maybe the person should specify what their birthday is going to be like here. But now we can know their age, right? We can now write a getter, right, that knows the age, right? We can write a getter that knows the age, right? That is, get the current full year, subtract it from what their birthday full year is. And it is really smart, right? You can see now that it's now smart. And this is so smart right there. So we can now say that, let's do this now. We can now say a console.log what? Console.log, console.log, a user dot what? A user dot what? Dot age, right? We're trying to get a user dot age, right? But with the help of our what? With the help of our smart getter and setter, it knows, right? It can do the beautiful magic for us, and we're able to see that beautiful magic. Trust me, JavaScript is crazy, beautiful, smart, and amazing if you really know what the full power of this language is, right? And all of the beautiful, absolute crazy stuff that we're able to just achieve with the power of JavaScript. So now we have what? A getter, just a getter that we created here, but that getter is smart, right? Based on the birthday, based on the birthday, is able to infer what we entirely want to do. I mean, it's just Copilot helping me. I really don't know how to write so many code, right? Copilot is the reason why I can write many things, right there. So I guess that's the end of today's entire stream, right? That is, I hope I've been able to bring you up to speed to understand that, well, with object, there is configuration, right? And we can do writing, and we can do what enumerating, and we can do configuring with our what objects, right? And we talked about the beautiful static methods, and that led me to introduce the idea of static method as well, right? That is a method that is joined to the class, right, or to the constructor itself, right, at the top. So we now have what? The amazing power to what? We can use a object dot get own property descriptor to describe that particular object property to us, right? And then we can now start changing the behavior of properties of object, right? Instead of it just being writable, you can make it what? Just configurable, or make it enumerable, right? You can change the behavior. And we also have a way to create amazing object, right, by the object dot define property, right? We use the define property to set everything in tune, and by default, right, you're writable, right, and your what? Enumerable, and your configurable, they are false by default. Then we have the plural version, right? That is, we have the object dot what? Define property. It can take more than just one property, right? It can define properties, right? And then we also have what? The object dot get own property descriptors. That is, it can now take an entire object and release to us the description of all the properties inside of that object. And later on, we moved to what? The getters and setters. Was saying that with the ability to do getting and setting directly on objects, our object becomes not just ordinary, they're sensitive, smart, and you can do amazing validations with the help of what? Our getters and setters. And this is the end of today's episode, right? I hope it has been very insightful. I hope you have learned a lot. And I hope you're not just going to be learning, but you're going to be applying all this amazing stuff that you're learning into your day-to-day writing of beautiful softwares, right? That can help change the world and make the world like a better place, right there. So tomorrow, by the grace, by God's grace, I'm going to also be streaming, right? Continuing our Next.js project that we are working on. And I'll see every one of you tomorrow, right? Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Nifemi, for staying with me. Thank you, Aris, for joining. Thank you. We had Justice Obina for joining. We also have Bosse. Thank you for joining as well. See you. I'm also going to instantly, very fast, immediately after this now, I'm going to release a blog post of this new video on my blog. as fast as I can right there. So thank you so much for joining the stream and do enjoy the rest of your night.